Welcome everyone to Around the ACL. Michelle Thompson here with Trey Ryder and Jake Brannon. And we are back from a little Thanksgiving break. We're going to get into the fifth open, preview who's going to be attending that, get into our standings. We now have our first official singles and doubles standings. So we'll talk about singles. We'll do a little game around where we think people should be in the singles ranking. And then, of course, we've got your questions to answer. Lots of fun stuff to get into. You guys sent in some good ones to get some good conversations going. But before we get into it, Trey, how was your Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was great. Apparently I didn't realize this was just like in the South, but like in the South, everybody just eats early. Like we ate Thanksgiving dinner at like 12:30, 1 o'clock. So I had to wake up.
Lunch. That's called lunch.
Yeah. No, Thanksgiving dinner is always at 12:30, 1 o'clock. So I had to wake up at 6 a.m. and start making food and all that. So it was a good time.
Did you host?
I didn't host, but I had like the most two critical elements of Thanksgiving. I had the potatoes and I had the rolls. So like two fundamental like
those are my least favorite things. Well, if it's mashed potato, is it mashed potatoes?
I did two different types. I was very proud of myself. So one, I did a traditional mashed potato for those that are like, I need a traditional. The other, I was proud of this. I did a cheesy potato au gratin on top of some mashed potatoes at the bottom. So it was like a combo, and it turned out phenomenal.
That is a crucial dish. I will agree.
Yeah, so it was crucial. So I had to wake up early and do that, and then I had to bake the Texas Roadhouse rolls. So we actually got authentic Texas Roadhouse. I waited in line 30 minutes at Texas Roadhouse the day before to get their dough. And made it the next day. So
I don't think I've ever ate a roll at Thanksgiving. What a waste of space in my stomach. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
And we had the honey butter to go along with it. We got 8 ounces of honey butter. I mean,
you could eat bread any day. I no, pass on the bread.
But it was good. And then we went to the movies. We saw Moana 2. So it was.
I can't wait.
Great.
I can't wait. Rome said he'll even see it with me, like begrudgingly. I'm like, you're going.
Very good. Very good. I didn't think the soundtrack was as good as the first, but I thought the story of the movie was good. Yeah.
That's what everybody's saying is the soundtrack. Interesting. All right, Jake.
Yeah, my Thanksgiving was good. We went over to my girlfriend's family's house. We enjoyed a really nice dinner. We ate at a much more normal time of 2:30 p.m. Right in the middle of the.
Ate at 2:30 or just attended at 2:30?
No. We got there around 2 and ate at 2:30. Yeah.
Okay.
Normal time. Right around halftime of the first football game. Then we eat during the second half and then we can, we rest our bellies while we watch the middle game. Okay. And then we go home to watch the late game. But it was good. I didn't get to go to the movies or anything because I had to wake up at 4:45 the next morning to head out to Cincinnati, Ohio for the 8th and final ACL College Tour stop. So it was a weekend. I'll tell you that. 31 degrees was the high. Very windy. Sean and I went inside to get warm for about 5 minutes. We came back out. It was snowing. So we also got to tear down and finish our activation with snow just pouring down on us. So that was fun. And then I had to drive the van back from Ohio to Rock Hill. That was a really long drive. And then I ended up getting food poisoning from somewhere I stopped along the way. So I was bedridden, sick all day yesterday. But hey, we're back up in Adam. We're here, and there quite literally cannot be anything to make the last couple of days worse than what it has been. So I'm ready to move forward and turn a new leaf.
All right. Well, we eat dinner at dinner time like normal people. I went to Southern California to be with my family. We haven't done Thanksgiving in LA since Nick and I have moved here. So like 13 years. So we made the trek there. And I think we attended at 2:30, but there's like a 2-hour cocktail hour. Like, I don't know what you guys are doing, but the craziest thing to Nick is that so there was like 40 people. It was at my sister-in-law's house, like 40 people there, no football on. Now, out of the 40 people, not one person aside from Nick and I could give two craps about football. Didn't watch it. And Nick was
that is wild.
How is that possible?
That's insane.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
Now you
What
guys
time
see
did
why
you
I
eat
moved.
then? What time did you eat?
Yeah, it's probably like 4:35.
What are you doing the whole beginning of the day? Like, what do you do
Drinking.
between like 10 a.m. and 5 p.m.?
Well, my sister-in-law and brother were cooking all day, like all their side dishes they were bringing, and I don't know what. I don't know. It's. I guess I've just grown up where Thanksgiving's not about football, and that's not how Nick lives. That's not how most people live, and I find it odd as well now. Now that I've kind of become accustomed to operating around the game, so strange, definitely strange. But here we are. As I famously have said, I don't do sports, so now you know why. It's not my fault. Speaking of sports, let's get into Open number 5 in Richmond, Virginia. Trey, who are you looking at that registration list?
Yeah, so I was going through this earlier, and I was looking at all the the brackets have been generated as well, so we can see some of the top players that have been because this is the first one we're going to see seedings, right? We're going to see people, and they're not going to be thrown and jumbled into a bracket randomly, and get some bad matchups. Like this should be an indication and a reflection on how people have done so far this year. So I think it's interesting. If we looked at kind of our power rankings, as we shared these before, a lot of us had, Devin Harbaugh 1, Ryan Trader 2 in some fashion. Neither one of those players is going to be in attendance this week. So an opportunity for somebody else to step in and kind of take control. So if we look at some of the top seeds in each of the brackets for this, right? In singles, Eric Davis, Ethan Walker, Trey Birchfield, and then someone like a Zach Aiken are kind of our top seeds across this bracket. But all the way down the list, it is a very deep open as far as talent goes. Star-studded, looks to be over 600 unique players registered for this event. It is a large open. There's a lot of great talent. So this is setting up kind of like what we talk about these signature events and what it's going to look like. Whoever comes through and wins this is going to be someone that you expect there at the end in these signatures to be battle tested. I look at some names that may have already won this year, someone like a Mark Richards, especially in singles, okay? I expect him to continue his trajectory of finishing really, really high up in tournaments. He's won a couple cash tournaments. He's won an open already. Is Mark Richards back to the form that we had a year and a half ago? And if so, this is one of those events where he can solidify that, maybe even get himself another title. Start talking about this race, this title race between him, Trey Birchfield, Matt Guy, and Jamie Graham. Speaking of Matt Guy and Jamie Graham, also both in the field. Matt Guy in the C bracket alongside Trey Birchfield. Trey Birchfield is the 1 seed in that bracket. Jamie Graham, as I look through this, I don't know exactly what singles. He's in bracket A, but he's also in here as well. So when we talk about the title race, I think Jake alluded to this last time. This title race throughout the entire year is just going to be so much fun to watch. How much back and forth do we get? But you're going to have the 4 top title earners here in this open this weekend. You're going to have Trey Birchfield, Jamie Graham, Matt Guy, and Mark Richards all in attendance, all trying to increase that number, right? Do you get any one of those winning to start that little jumble of first, second, third, and fourth among these different players? If Trey Birchfield wins again, does he build that lead? Next down the title list, you say, who's next on that list? You have Eric Davis and you have Brett Guy, also both in attendance this weekend. You have people like Adam Hissner, Jacob Trzynski is here, Logan Chamberlain is here, Gavin Cano. I mean, this is absolutely star-studded as far as a lineup goes across the board. Now, looking over into doubles, again, I really anticipate this to be a lot of great teams near the top. Your top seeds in each of the 4 brackets, kind of 3 that you expected, and this other one that doesn't really belong, right? Ethan Walker and Cody Henderson, Justin Burton Jr., Logan Chamberlain, Mark Richards and Tony Smith, and then Jacob Harrison and Spencer Fabianar, right? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but they've been continuously playing with one another, especially in opens 4 through 7. It's not going to be as bad as random seeding, but keep in mind that you are going to get some jumbled partners and you're going to get some people down in the rankings because they're not playing with one dedicated pro partner. So you may see a little bit of shuffling or one team that's a little bit lower ranked. It won't be until we get to those signatures where you really start to see these rankings true to form as far as the pro events go. But hey, it's better than what we had last year. Than the first signature was just completely random. So we're building that way. But Justin Burton Jr. and Logan Chamberlain, always expect them to deliver. Mark Richards and Tony Smith, always expect them to deliver. But some other, Matt and Brett Guy, Jamie Graham and Jacob Trzynski, a lot of us had them top 5 in our power rankings. We expect them to do well. And then, of course, the world champions, Adam Hister and Trey Birchfield. I wouldn't say they've gone quiet, but obviously when you win the world championship, you're all eyes on you, and it's always going to be tough to follow up those next few events to be able to deliver at such a high level. For us, it's about staying relevant. We know that they're always going to be able to strike, but if they want to stay in that top 5 range and the top of everyone's minds, this is just an event where you expect them to finish in that top 4 realm and mentality. So overall, the one message I have is buckle up, because if you're someone that can come in and win this event, you are battle tested, and we expect you to have a great second half of the season and possibly win another pro event later on this year.
Yeah, like you said, it's a deep one. I noticed when I was pulling the registrations, and I pulled them before we even closed it, so there could be even more now. But we were almost at the cap for singles, so lots of people going to be there. Jake, who are you looking at?
Yeah, I will say when I was looking through my players to watch, I wasn't really super focused on the title watch coming into it. But you do make a great point that this weekend could go a long way in determining who goes through the rest of the season and collecting more titles. But the first player I have my watch on, it's got to be Jackson Gore. A couple weekends ago, he swept a stacked Rock Hill Regional, winning both open singles and open doubles. And from just being able to watch him closely, going to the local tournaments that he goes to, his confidence is at an all-time high. He loves the new bag switch with these AARs. He loves the rippers. He's looked as good as probably ever with these bags in his hand. And I think this could very well be the beginning of the Jackson Gore comeback player of the year push after a pretty lackluster season last year. So I look out for him. And looking at his bracket, he's in Pro Singles B bracket. He has a pretty winnable quadrant on his singles side. His first difficult match, I believe, would be Jacob Trzynski, and that's to get to the winner's semis. So that's a match I'm definitely going to be circling when I'm in Richmond this weekend. Another player I'm looking out for is Tony Forbes. This is the last major event before the high school national championships in Myrtle Beach the weekend after New Year's. So I expect Tony Forbes to turn up the heat in preparation for defending his high school singles national title. I didn't really get a chance to see what bracket he's in, but I expect him to make a deep run in everything he plays in as well. And then my number 3, kind of like a wild card, it's Mike Hoffman. His best career open finish came in this exact same building last year, where he won his bracket before ultimately falling to the man who won every single event last year in Ethan Walker. Hoffman with a new bag sponsor as well. He's throwing Logic this year with new pro partner Lesson Allen Jr. So I can't wait to see what he does as well. And then obviously I have to put Ethan Walker in the mix. I just mentioned he swept everything last year, the blind draw doubles and singles. So he's proven to like this building, the Henrico Sports and Event Center. So you got to put him up there as well. And moving on to the doubles side, the one team that intrigued me so far is Cheyenne Bubenheim and Jordan Power. On paper, it's a heavy-hitting team. On paper, you expect them to perform well. They haven't quite clicked yet, and I expect bigger and better things from them. They aren't ranked on any of our analysts' top 10 pro doubles rankings, at least not that I'm aware of. So, and I would love to be proven wrong for not putting them on there. So I look out for them. On the complete opposite side of the spectrum, though, the next team I'm looking at is Jamie Graham and Jacob Trzynski. The complete opposite story. They are my number 1 doubles team in power rankings, and I expect them to be in the end of every single bracket they played in. I interviewed Trzynski a couple weeks ago. You can check out my article on iPlayCornhole.com. And in my interview with Trzynski, he mentioned that they've only played in 2 tournaments together, and they were both round limited. So now that we're at an open where it is back to classic format, I want to see them excel at slowing the game down, which they both can do, and with extremely high PPRs. That's exactly what Trzynski said he was going to try to do, and he expected super long games with Graham throwing the bags back to him. So I'm ready to call some really long games with these two this weekend, and I would be shocked if I don't see them in the finals. But the next team I'm looking out for is kind of not a wild card team, but a team that you wouldn't necessarily expect to play with each other, and that's Ryan Wiedenfeld and Eric Davis. They're teaming up to play this weekend. It's going to be fun to watch, and not because they're going to be talking to each other and chirping at everybody, but because they will do some incredible things with the bags in their hand, and it's only a matter of time before. And I'll predict it right now: the top 10 shot list from this weekend is going to have at least 3 of those top 10s from Eric Davis or Ryan Wiedenfeld. So
who's going to rein him in, though, Jake? Who's going to be on the other side going, no, don't do that?
I don't think either of them will do that, though, because they're not going to talk to each other. They're just going to let the others throw the bags, and whatever happens, happens.
Do you think I can go under the board and have it come up through the hole and then push that bag in?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. Try it.
Yeah, I think you can. I think that's a great idea. Oh, that's going to be fun to watch for sure. Let's get into those top 10 singles rankings. As we mentioned, we're not into the pro events, I guess, or signature events yet. So this list is going to be a bit skewed for till about April, Trey?
Yeah, really. It's the top. So a pro singles standings or even a pro doubles, it translates to both. For a singles ranking, it counts your 2 best opens and your 4 best signature events. So if you think about it, once you've won 2 open brackets, you've maxed out your points, right? So you're going to see at least by the time we get all the way to that start of the signature series, you're going to have probably 5, 6 different players with a perfect score going into that. And that's just because they've maxed out their open points. And really where they start to distinguish themselves, it's going to be across those 6 signature events where you count your best 4.
Yeah, and that's why when people are looking to see those elite players in the top 10, it's a little bit harder for them to get there. Right now in the open season, we are going to see them there, and we'll see what happens once we get into the meat of the season. But as it stands right now, Devin Harbaugh and Sammy Soto are tied at 1 with those max points, as Trey said. 3rd is Eric Davis, Ethan Walker, and Ryan Trader. 6th is Trey Birchfield. 7th is Zach Aiken, Mason Trader, and Bryce Forbes. And then tied for 10th, Adam Hisner, Matt Guy, Gavin Cano, and Levi Haddock. Thoughts on the single standings right now, Trey?
Yeah, so a couple things come to mind here, right? I started to look at these standings when I started to make my power rankings a little bit just to kind of get involved in it. Sammy Soto showing that he can play at a really high level. Now, one thing I would say, it would have been interesting if we had looked at opens prior to the Nationals last season. It wouldn't have surprised me if Sammy Soto was near the top 2 or 3 in that one as well. He just wasn't able to finish on what he started in the signature event. So as I look forward, I expect Sammy Soto to be there at the end a lot of these open events. He's got to flip that switch this year and be able to turn it on when those big major events come at the end of the season. I don't think there's many a surprise of any of the top 6. Harbaugh, Soto, Davis, Walker, Trader, Birchfield, right? I think where a lot of the surprises come is the band of elite players in that's all kind of tied for 7th, actually. Zach Aiken, Mason Trader, and Bryce Forbes. I think those 3, very similar to what I was just talking about Soto, in that, yes, they've done some great work now, but the question will become when the lights are turned on for these elite players, once that signature event comes around, are they going to be able to maintain their standing there inside that top 10? Really, we don't expect them to be top 10. You feel like they're going to drop out. It's just a question of how much do you drop out, right? Can they maintain a top 30 ranking, even a top 50 ranking, and guarantee themselves, the possibility of becoming an ACL pro the following season? So that's just something that I'm keeping my eye on. And then on the 10th range, one person I just got to talk about, how about Matt Guy? I got to give it to him because I think a lot of people just say, now, Matt can't compete anymore, right? He can't be like all of these other young guns and sling it out there. Sorry, Matt Guy's the 10th ranked player in the world right now and competing at a high level. What I've said is he just feels like right now he's just sitting a lot of fifth place finishes, a second place finish. Like there's a couple, tournaments in which he's so close, he's just not able to get across the finish line. He almost won the last event, just coming up a little bit short. And on top of it, the event that he almost won was round limited. And how many times have us three and the rest of our analysts talked about how Matt Guy can't win round limited events because he plays the wrong kind of game to be able to win those type of events. He showed us he can be able to do that. Now as we transition back to 21, guys, don't sleep on Matt Guy. I think he can make another deep run this week, but he's showing that he's in that top 10 alongside Hisner, Kano, and Haddock. Really interesting top 10 we got so far to start the year.
Jake, how about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, just looking through it from my power rankings from the start of the year, I have some pretty good lists, and I have some people that are on here. Obviously, I think we all three had Devin Harbaugh ranked number 1, and so far so good. But just looking through the list, Sammy Soto tied for that 1 spot. It's not a surprise at all. He's had an exceptional start to the season. Eric Davis tied for that 3 spot, not a surprise at all, especially after what he did last Open. Ethan Walker up there as well, not a surprise. Ryan Trader, not a surprise. Birchwood, not a surprise. But like you had mentioned, Trey, when you get into this middle of the pack with these elite players, Zach Aiken, Mason Trader, Bryce Forbes, kind of a surprise. And you really did hit the nail on the head when talking about whether or not they can continue to stay up in these rankings. We talk about Bryce Forbes down there tied for that 7th spot. He won his bracket at the first Open in Rock Hill, and ever since then, we haven't really seen a lot from him. But the fact that he's still up in this top 10, even after doing that, just shows how much winning an Open bracket goes a long way in these pro single standings. So that is something to keep an eye on as the season progresses, because you're going to get to these Midwest or West Coast Opens where you don't get a lot of the big star power that we get on the East Coast, and you'll get these players like a Hayden Gonzalez from last year who wins his bracket, or some other elite players along the way who are going to win these brackets and find themselves climbing up in the pro single standings. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on there. But man, I was also going to talk about Matt Guy. I mean, getting to watch him close up at the Little Rock Open, I mean, it was fun to watch. I picked him to win that Open in my preview. I came up just a bit short. And then, of course, the next Open is when he made that big run winning his bracket. So I was just a weekend behind on that one. But, man, this top 10 is fun. But then you look through some of the players who are just on the outside of the top 10. You got players like a Justin Burton Jr., a Mark Richards, a Jacob Drzezinski. We're going to talk about these guys later. Like Ian Cripps, Ryan Windsor, all of these players who you expect to be up here aren't up here quite yet. But, of course, as you've alluded to already, a lot of season to go. And once we get into these signature events, you turn those lights on. Will these, players who we aren't necessarily normalized to see up here, are they going to be able to stay with it, or are they going to fall back in place? So it's something that I'm curious to see as the season progresses.
Absolutely. And we are going to get into underrated, overrated, properly rated, a fun version of this game. We know these standings aren't true standings due to it just being based on Opens, but I did try to pick people that I've seen in attendance at least, so we could have a little fun with this. So I'll read you a name and a ranking, and you guys let me know if you think that's underrated, overrated, or properly rated. First one, Matt Wilson at number 14, Trey.
Oh gosh, this one's like not too far-fetched. I am going to say a little bit overrated. I think Matt Wilson may end up in a 25 to 30 range. He certainly has the upside to finish better than that. It's not about the best that he can be on a single day. I think it's going to be a range of consistency, have to be one of the most consistent players. This is someone that qualified through the elite program last year and made it into a lot of final brackets, ended up in the 65 range. I expect him to make a big jump this year, but not ready to quite say that he's going to be a top 10 finisher or a top 5 finisher or anything like that.
Jake?
Yeah, same exact thing. My note said exactly just a smidge overrated. I would put him in the top 25, but it's hard to put him over people behind him in the standings currently, like a Justin Burton Jr., like a Mark Richards and a Ryan Windsor, like a Noah Almanza, Zach Scheibner, all those people back there. I think, like you mentioned, he has the potential to be up there for sure, but I think it's hard to justify putting him as the number 14th ranked player in the world.
Jacob Trzynski sitting at number 16, Trey.
Yeah, this is underrated. I think you and I have all said the same thing, that we think Jacob Trzynski, that the conversation is he top 5, 10, or 15? I think, and I think 15 is even stretching it a little bit. He's already just won an Open, underrated. He's going to finish higher than that.
Jake?
Yeah, I said super underrated. I think he has top 10 potential, if not more than that. Coming off of an Open win, I have him 5th in my power rankings that were posted on the website a couple weekends ago. But yeah, I mean, he has all the capabilities to be a top 5 player at the end of the season.
Logan Chamberlain at number 23.
This one is really tough. I think, again, you have an influx of talent. If I look at Logan Chamberlain over the past few years, we're talking about in the top 15 range. 23, based on what I've seen so far, I haven't seen the same level of consistency out of Logan Chamberlain that I've seen in previous seasons. So I think he may fall a little bit. The question is he going to fall enough to be outside that 23 range? I'm going to say properly rated. I think he's right there at 23 in that range. Yes, I mean, we could argue 21 through 25 or whatever. But I think that's pretty spot on from what I'm seeing out of Chamberlain. His upside is higher. His potential is higher. We've seen him finish better. But right now, with what I'm seeing from him, I'm gonna stick and say properly rated.
Jake, are you going to agree again?
No, I think I'm gonna go just a little bit underrated. And my reasoning for that is there's a lot of people tied for that 23rd spot. And where he is, you go up the list. I'm just going to go straight up the list from the standings right now, and I'm going to I like to do head-to-head matchups. Nate Long, I think Chamberlain beats Nate Long. I think Chamberlain beats Austin Waskow. I think he beats Carson Getty. I think he beats David Brown. I think he can beat Ryan Windsor. I think he beats Brett Guy. That puts him already into the 20th spot. I mean, Ethan Farias, Chase Lester, Philip Lopez Jr., Ian Cripps. And when you get up to that Jacob Trzynski at the 16th spot, I kind of think that's where he can max out. So in my head, I'm thinking between that 17 to 20 range as we sit right now.
Ryan Smith at number 45.
This is interesting. Let me ask you this. He's 45 this year. I know the answer. What do you think he was rated last year, Jake? Above or below 45? Take a guess. I don't want you to look this up. I want your gut feel.
My gut feel is that he should be ranked above 45, but I just have a feeling he wasn't.
Michelle, what do you think?
I don't think he was.
He was exactly 45.
Oh, my goodness. Really? You set us up for failure. You said below or above or below.
I know. Trick question. Okay, year before that. So we're talking 2 seasons ago now. What was he ranked? Take a guess.
45.
He's not 45 again. Mish, take a guess.
I'll say 30.
60.
Okay.
Which is interesting to me. When I think about Ryan Smith, I think about this player that is always up there. And part of the reason I think is because his partnership with Ryan Wiedenfeld, I think Ryan Smith is flat out a better doubles partner. And I think that Ryan Smith has the case of inconsistencies, where one tournament he may finish as a bracket winner or come in second. The next he may finish 100th, right? And that is what alters his ranking. So because of that, I'm actually going to say he's properly rated. I mean, at 45, to me, that's where he finished last year. I think he's going to have a very similar one this year. If you start talking about his doubles ranking with Ryan Wiedenfeld, I think about it differently. I think Ryan Smith is better in doubles, but I think he's going to have some more sane. His inconsistency is consistent across the past couple of years. He'll have some big tournaments, but he'll also have ones where he just stumbles. So I'll stick with properly rated at 45.
All right, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just so frustrating. Growing up in that Maryland and Virginia area, I would see him and play against him at least 2 or 3 times a month in regionals, and he would never miss. I'm talking multiple straight events where he would average in the high 10s to low 11s. Nobody would come close to him. He would sweep every regional for months and months on end. And so I would look at him and be like, okay, he's a top 20 player. And then he would come out to these events and be, like you mentioned, consistently inconsistent, where he would either finish in the top 5 of his bracket or finish 32nd. And from an outsider's perspective, for someone who's not a pro and for someone who got to play against him locally, it was so frustrating because I'm like, dude, why can't you play like that back home? Like, I don't get it. So, I mean, I guess I have to go properly rated, but man, I guess it must be me holding him to a higher standard just from playing against him. But I expect more out of him. But the stats don't lie. He's a middle tier 45, 50 type of player.
All right, Jamie Graham at 53.
Yeah, this one's underrated. The question is to what extent, right? Where will we get Jamie Graham this year? We certainly see him always. Sometimes he's not at the top. Sometimes he's at the bottom. I don't know. He'll be in the top 20. Where in that, I don't know. So pretty easy though that this one's underrated.
Jake?
Yeah, I mean it's clearly underrated. I think he has top 10 potential. I don't know. I feel like he's already gone to more opens this season than he did all of last season. At least is what it feels like right now. But I expect him to continue to climb up those rankings. I think this weekend will really show out. Like we mentioned, it's a classic format, so we're playing all these games 21. Jamie Graham, obviously a multiple-time world champion. He knows what it takes to win. I think he's going to have a good run this weekend, and it's just plain and simple. It's underrated. He's not the 52nd ranked player in the world.
You're right, 53rd. Jordan Power at 94.
Also underrated. Now, I would say that if you asked me this question exactly at 94 right before the season started, I would have said pretty close to properly rated, actually. I think that would have surprised some people, but I do like the attitude, the focus I'm getting out of Jordan Power this season. I think the partner switch is actually allowing him to focus differently than he has in the past, and I think that's good for him. So I think playing with Cheyenne allows him to have a different type of focus, which is great. So, and that's going to translate over into the single side as well. So I will say underrated. I like Jordan Power to be more of a top 40 player this year, getting closer to what he was a few years ago. I don't know if he'll get all the way back to that point, but I think he'll get pretty close.
Jake?
Yeah, I say underrated, but not as significantly as Trey said. I think he has top 65, top 50 potential possibly. But I mean, I just haven't seen a lot out of him on the single side. Obviously, he's a great doubles player. We've seen it time and time again on the double side, but not a lot to show for on the single side, at least from my perspective. And I always say I like to be proven wrong, but this is another instance. I just don't see it out of him quite yet. So I'd like to be proven wrong on that aspect. But I'm gonna say a little bit underrated, but not as much as what Trey said.
I'm sure he'll run with that. So there you go.
Jordan Power sucks. He's the worst player ever.
There's your fuel.
There you go.
You got it.
No, what is it? Not a chance. Not a chance.
Not a chance.
Not a chance.
I need a shirt that says "Not a chance."
That and prove it. Yeah.
Just like prove it and not a chance. Like those are apparently my two slogans now. So
exactly. All right, well, let's get into some of your questions. There's a lot of them. I don't think we'll get through them all, but thank you for sending them in. We will get to them eventually. There were quite a few like customer service type questions. So Christopher Lott, Travis Othellis, Zach Spencer, Kirkland Harold, your questions would be customer service questions. We are not the team for that, but we do have a great team for that. So just head to iPlayACL.com and click the contact us button, and you'll get to put your ticket in there and we'll get those taken care of. But the Corey Fredrickson, Chris Toronto, and Jessica Rauscher, you asked about app improvements. So Trey, I'll turn that one to you.
Yeah. I think I think people would be shocked sometimes at the idea that the ACL can be self-aware sometimes. I think people don't give us credit for that. So what I would say is that we certainly have a tech roadmap that's changed, and also there's a big shift coming in philosophy from the ACL over the next couple months that we'll be excited to share more of. I anticipate that the ACL will have some type of town hall type of presentation, or some type of big State of the Union from the commissioner when we get into Q1 of 2025, that just kind of outlines what's the next step for the ACL, right? I mean, for years, the ACL's focus was on a variety of different things. It was professionalizing the sport. It was getting on TV. It was growing in that regard, right? And so we've done a lot of really great things in that element. And now it's about continuing to do those things, but it's about taking the next step, and how can we be the best, the kind of the behind the scenes slogan. So obviously anyone can play and anyone can win is but what we publicly gone out there with. But when we talk to businesses and investors and things of that nature, the ACL slogan is, the worldwide governing body for professional, competitive, and recreational cornhole. And so for us, what I think we've done a great job of over the past few years is on the professional side of things, right? And there's certainly some tweaks that we want to make, and we made a lot of tweaks this year that we're pretty happy with on the professional side of things. And that'll continue to get bigger and better as we continue to grow the league in that way. But really, there's a lot of room for improvement and things that we want to do a lot better on the competitive and recreational side of things. And one of that is big infrastructure investment on the tech side of things. So certainly we've had a really lean team on the tech side for a number of years that a lot of people don't realize. And that's been somewhat self-inflicted, but also some other, just outside influences and restrictions not able to do. So that philosophy is going to be changing pretty significantly, I expect, over the next few months, and that the level of investment relative to the other things that the ACL invests in will be growing. And so on the competitive and recreational side of things, a lot of it starts with tech, right? And making sure that the tech that we can put out there is the best that we can. So there is a tech roadmap that will become public at some point. A lot of things that a lot of people have been asking for and begging for are on that roadmap, and there's a timeline for it as well. And we'll be transparent about all those different things here, probably in Q1 of 2025, getting through the holidays. Really excited for it. Got to put some finishing touches on it, but it's a big step for us, and I think a lot of people will be pleased with it on the competitive and recreational side of cornhole.
Yeah, I think that's great. All right, Brian Asbury asked, what about DLH details and info? What are the benefits of signing a DLH with the ACL? Maybe explain what DLH is first.
Yeah, I actually stumbled this as well, because the only DLH I know of is the one that we use for like licensing, which if that's the case, I think the question, it's just about monitoring and the legal side of things. I'll share this one story with you, and the reason that we have to have a lot of things buttoned up like this. The ACL, through our pro jersey process, if everybody's not pro jersey process, but the pros have their pro jerseys and they put logos on there. We used to just say to our pro players, right, send us your sponsor logos, we'll send you a proof, and you approve the proof, and then it's all good to go. Well, about 3 or 4 years ago, we had a pretty large brand end up, and I'm not going to get into details, but let's say a sub-brand of a billion-dollar corporation, okay, a snack food brand, if you will, end up on the jersey of about 10 different pro players through this one contract that this one person has signed. And so we printed the jerseys, we sent them off, all to come to find out later that the snack food company threatened the ACL with a lawsuit because we did not have proper permission to print that logo on jerseys. So it's an instance like that causes the ACL to all of a sudden have to up its infrastructure to be able to make sure that we have permission each and every year for people to make sure that they can, they become a licensee, they can make ACL products, they can do all these different things. So it can be frustrating at times. I get it. if you're Joe and John's tire repair in Iowa, sometimes you don't give a rip about trying to be a certified licensee or co-brand with the ACL, and I get that, and that's just, unfortunately, it's just what we have to deal with, because when you start playing in these big opportunities, that's just what you have to do. When we have opportunities with other leagues and other brands, when we print, you wouldn't believe what we have to do just to make a single co-branded Kansas State set of cornhole boards, all the agencies we have to join, all that. Michelle knows about this, all the different paperwork and infrastructure we have to do just to be able to do that. So, sorry if that was a really long answer, but sometimes I know people can get frustrated on the licensing and the approval and the branding side of things. There's some things that we're trying to pull back on. So we are trying to loosen that leash a little bit, because I think in some instances we jumped over the top and tried to really clamp down on a lot of different things. We're starting to loosen that rope a little bit, but at the same time, that's not something that we can ever just completely get rid of.
Yeah, got to protect yourself. All right, I'm going to direct this question to you, Jake, since you have played at a very high level. Matthew Girdner said, what do you do when you're in the mood to practice? You're feeling good, the bags feel right in your hand, but that's where it ends. The throw feels good, but the bag comes up short, long, left and right. Do you try and slow down? Do you zone in again? How do you keep going at it, or do you stop or come back tomorrow? What's your practice attitude?
Yeah, so it kind of depends on how I'm feeling. If what you exactly said is going on, then I'll usually just try to work through it. I'll slow down. Sometimes when I'll hold all 4 bags in my hand, sometimes I'll just throw them down. I'll throw one bag at a time, really work on the exact mechanics that I'm trying to work on to try to hone in what I'm exactly trying to do. Another thing that I've done, because I've been in slumps before, is I will literally, I have a full body mirror in my house. I will go stand in front of that full body mirror, and I will set up a chair next to it, and I will do my exact throw and just chuck a bag into that chair. And I will be able to watch and see my form, like whether I'm keeping my back straight, because I like to crouch a lot, like whether I'm keeping my back straight, the grip on my bag to make sure that's exactly what I want it to be, and just make sure by my release, the angle on what I'm trying to do is correct and it feels good, because most of the time when it does feel good, that's when the bag is going into the hole. Other things I'll try to do, if I am in a little bit of a slump, I will take a couple of days off. We have a close buddy back home. His name is Franklin. He has played cornhole every single day for years. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. He will go home from work. He has boards set up in his backyard. He will go and play for hours. And he's been in a pretty big slump for years. And we always try to tell him, like, dude, just take a break. Just take a day off. Take a weekend off. Yeah. And he's like, I can't do it. It's my whole life. I can't do it. And until you take a day off and just reset, you're never going to get better. So shout out to Franklin for that one. But yeah, sometimes all it takes is just sitting down, taking a break, taking a day off, taking a weekend off, and then going back to attack your what you're trying to accomplish the next time. Because it could be just a mental thing. Like, if you throw too many bags in a row and you're trying to repeat the same things, but you keep finding yourself off, that's like kind of a case of the yips almost.
Yeah.
So it kind of could be just a big mental thing. Just take a day off, relax, and breathe. It's not going anywhere. But yeah, if you're in your head like that, nothing's going to get accomplished in 30 seconds. So you need to take your time and do what it takes to get better.
Yeah, and they say that back when I was a personal trainer too. It's like, if you exercise every single day at the same intensity, you're going to, one, maybe get injured, but 2, your body kind of plateaus, and it's best to take a break. And they recommend it. So there you go. Sure. Justin Clem, I'm pretty sure this one's right directed at you, Trey. Are we still saying not a chance for Logan Dupler?
Not a chance that Logan Dupler. I'll have to give like a good hot take here or something like that. How about not a chance Logan Dupler finishes outside the top 40 in singles at the end of the season? That's my not a chance. This is way more lukewarm, right? He's proven himself. It takes a lot. Look, I think it deserves a lot of respect for someone to have a target on their back like that. And again, I didn't mean to necessarily call him out, guys. You got forgetting this wasn't my hot take. This was Anthony's hot take, right? So I just didn't expect him to play as well as he did. He proved that. That takes a lot of guts. That takes a lot of skill. Yeah, I expect him to be a top 40 player this year. Now that he's been able to fight through that adversity, but you got to keep it going, right? That's the thing when you deal with someone. We're talking about a junior. Juniors, that I don't pretend to get in the headspace of somebody under the age of 18 playing a professional sport. Like it could go a million different directions. I hope he continues on this path that he is. I'm rooting for him, but certainly won't be saying not a chance to Logan Dupler. But I should just start saying not a chance anytime someone says someone else is going to win, because it's become my new catchphrase apparently.
People love it. Jacob Coleman said, can anyone play in the pro qualifier Worlds this year, or are there requirements for it now?
Yeah, no, anybody can play in the pro qualifier this year. But you got to keep in mind, if you looked at, there's a couple different, quote, pro qualifiers this year. You have the women's seniors and juniors pro qualifiers that allow them to become women's senior and junior pros the next season. So that's one new thing. You also have the state champion tournament that I think a lot of people are forgetting about. If you're ranked in the top 5 in your state, regardless of what state it is, you're invited to compete in a tournament. If you finish in the top 6 in that event, we're going to do 6 brackets, I believe. If you win your bracket at that event, you're also a pro. So that's kind of another pseudo pro qualifier. But then, of course, the traditional pro qualifier on that Sunday at the World Championships will also be available for people to compete in. Anybody to compete in that, yes.
Last question for today. We'll get the rest later. With the ACL, Ryan Booker said, with the ACL going to 100 pros soon, what's the incentive for the advanced players to play, knowing the odds of going pro are very slim?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because that goes back to kind of what I was saying at the beginning about making the competitive and recreational side of cornhole something that people want to do. I think there's a lot of emphasis on creating just that. I would say we need to make it fun and awesome for people to play cornhole, not just for the 100 best players or the 150 best players or the 200 best players in the world. It needs to be something that we're doing across the board. So I think when someone asks like why, I think maybe more the question is, when you say what's the incentive, well, what do you want to do? Is your only goal to only become a pro player? Or do you like playing the game and want to find fun ways to do it? Right there, because there could be different answers to that question. Really, I would say if playing at the highest level is important to you, that's what this elite program is. And I think the elite program is actually going to make it better for people of that advanced level skill to compete against the best in the world, because there's going to be more opportunities for them to do that and more ways to qualify in without it just being a once in a year type of thing. So I would argue that the elite program is doing a great job of setting that up for success.
Awesome. All right. Hot take time. You got one?
Yes, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that we will have one of the top 4 title winners win a title this weekend. And I know that's a little bit weird, but I think we're going to have some title movement is really what I'm saying. There's going to be some type of second place jumps in tied for first, third place jumps in tied for second. I look at those top 4 players right now in the title race. Matt Guy, Trey, not in order. Matt Guy, Trey Birchfield, Mark Richards, Jamie Graham. Someone's winning something, maybe multiple, and we get some shift up in that rankings is my hot take for the weekend.
Jake?
Yeah, I'll go super hot with this one. The second year we've been in this venue, only one pro has ever won an event at this venue. His name is Ethan Walker, and I think he does it again. Give me Ethan Walker to win pro singles and pro doubles.
Ooh, a sweep. All right. I got Cash Chamness, Gavin Cano teaming up. I think they're going to win a bracket. Cash has gotten far, but he hasn't gotten towards the end there. So let's go. Cash Chamness, Gavin Cano. That's my hot take. And that's all the time we got. All right, guys. We will see you over in Richmond, Virginia. Make sure you tune into the action, and we'll see you next time.